Let's bring in CTV News political commentator Scott Reid. Scott is a former senior advisor to then Prime Minister Paul Martin and is now canvassing for Liberal candidate Evan Sullivan. Scott, thanks as always for joining us. That's a mouthful. You're a busy man right now.
I didn't know that was part of my intro. I dropped lit for him one day. There we go.
Oh, well, we've got to include it, but today you're going to put on your hat as political pundit and let us know what we can expect for tomorrow's debate. What do you think each leader has to do to try and win over voters?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting set of challenges. So for Mark Carney, I think he's got to resist an impulse that probably will be very powerful. And that is for this former central bank governor, a newbie to politics, to resist the temptation to be a politician. Because you step into that debate arena and the cameras, the opponents, the proximity, all of it encourages you to swing punches, to throw punches, to try to be the best politician on stage with the quickest comeback and the sharpest attack. But the way he got to the lead in the polls that Nick Manus's numbers show is by being the guy who seems calm and collected and best positioned to be prime minister. He's got to actually do more of that. And to a certain degree, that may mean that he has to avoid looking like a politician, avoid throwing punches. And I think in some ways for Pierre Poilievre, it's the exact opposite. He has to avoid what people think about him, their perceptions of him as a really hardcore partisan politician. He's going to have to present a slightly different side to himself, demonstrate to people that he has what it takes to be prime minister, that he isn't all just anger and attacks, and that he is not sort of channeling just pure frustration, that he's a guy who can be relied upon to manage challenges as large as our ailing economy.
And how much of a factor will the other four leaders be? I mean, it's a crowded house there. What will they be trying to do, and how much of a factor will they be?
Well, one of the things I think will be very interesting is that Pierre Poilievre, I think strategically, is going to have to rely on some of the other leaders. He really needs to see Mark Carney wounded. But for the reasons I just mentioned, it's very awkward for him to be the person that does the wounding, because he needs to present himself as somebody who fits the position of prime minister. So he's going to turn in French to Blanchette and hope that Blanchette bludgeons Carney so that he can just present himself as the reasonable alternative. Similarly, in English Canada, I think he's going to have to rely upon Jagmeet Singh to rough up Mark Carney, ask him all those tough questions about tax havens and his time with Brookfield and all that sort of thing. And then again, for Pierre Poilievre to present himself as a guy who's focused on pocketbook issues, on fighting Trump, and on connecting with Canadians. So I think the other leaders could play an important role. I don't think any of them will emerge as the winners, but they could be a spoiler if they help in the gang up on Carney.
And then, of course, there's one other leader, Donald Trump. How much of a factor will he be in the debates?
He is like the orange Holy Spirit. He hovers over us all, and he will be present in both debates. And, again, no leader will escape mention of him, whether we're talking about the economy, tariffs, or whether we're just even talking about how we organize ourselves internally with internal trade barriers, or whatever have you. So I think for Carney, he's going to have to constantly be referencing the threat of Trump and tariffs and how he alone is uniquely qualified to manage that. And for Pierre Poilievre, he's going to have to make certain that in his manner, his tone, and his delivery, he doesn't channel Trump. One of the problems he has is that even when he says, I'm condemning Trump, he sometimes evokes Trump for a lot of voters, and particularly for women voters. That's a turnoff.
Okay, Scott, thank you as always, sir.
Thank you.
CTV News political commentator Scott Reid.